I met Dana at a wedding in Atlanta. Neither of us knew the couple that well. She was there as a friend of the bride, I was the plus one of a college buddy. We were seated at the same table, toward the back, right next to the speakers that were too loud and the people who got too drunk too early. I cracked a joke about how we were obviously at the Expendables table. She laughed. Not a polite laugh, a real one. We spent the entire reception talking. Didn't dance. Didn't drift. Just talked. She was quick-witted, opinionated in a way that didn't feel performative, and had this calm presence I was drawn to instantly. I gave her my number before I left, fully convinced she wouldn't use it. She texted me 2 days later, still recovering from our table's war against decency. Coffee? 6 years later, we were married. It wasn't perfect, but it was solid. Real. We communicated well. She worked in interior architecture, mostly high-end residential, but she'd done a few boutique hotels and short-term rentals that got featured in design blogs. I worked in business development at a rapidly growing logistics tech firm. Good job, good team, decent money. We lived in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood outside of Austin. Clean, modern house. 2 dogs. No kids, not yet, but we talked about it often. Dana designed our home with the same focus she brought to her clients. Everything had purpose, the soft light, the furniture that didn't match perfectly but still fit. There was nothing accidental about our space. It felt intentional. Warm. We had routines. Sundays were for the farmer's market and lazy breakfasts. We rotated who cooked dinner during the week. We went on short getaways every few months, Big Sur, Vancouver, Charleston. Nothing extravagant, just enough to reset. She loved planning the itineraries. I loved following her lead. Our friends loved her. My co-workers loved her. She had that ability to glide into any room and make people feel like they'd known her for years. Confident without being loud. Warm without being fake. Everyone asked how I landed her, and I'd always say the same thing, I asked her out before she realized she was out of my league. We laughed a lot. Shared playlists. Swapped books. Watched terrible documentaries on obscure cults just so we could make fun of them together. I didn't just love her, I liked being around her. That mattered. We had plans. A 3-year timeline to either renovate or move up. A list of countries we wanted to visit before having kids. She wanted to launch her own design studio. I wanted to move into strategy at work. We weren't chasing wealth or status, just freedom. Comfort. A life we didn't need a vacation from. And that's what it felt like, most days. Like we'd built something steady and real. Not flashy. Not forced. Just ours. Dana always said a good life wasn't about big moments, it was about daily design. Little details, small choices, subtle adjustments. She treated our life like a space she was shaping, not with control, but with care. And it worked. Our house was something we talked about like it was alive. She'd walk through a room and say, "This corner needs softness," or, "The light's right, but the tone's wrong." I never had her eye for detail, but I trusted her instincts. Everything she touched felt balanced. Calm. Intentional. She had a way of making every space she entered better, not just aesthetically, but energetically. That sounds like the kind of thing people say after the fact, but it was true. When friends came over, they'd always linger longer than they planned to. No one ever rushed out of our house. Dana would pour wine, light candles without announcing it, put on the kind of playlist that drifted into the background like it belonged there. We hosted often, low-key dinners, weekend brunches, wine nights that turned into hours of conversation. Our friends said we made it look easy. We weren't flashy. Just, dialed in. In sync. Even the quiet moments felt full. Weekdays were structured but never strict. I usually left early, Dana wasn't a morning person unless it involved coffee and direct sunlight. She started her day slow, but once she locked in, she didn't stop. Her home studio was half office, half gallery, samples, sketches, mood boards. I used to peek in and see her hunched over a laptop or rearranging fabric swatches on the floor, lost in her world. She worked with high-end residential clients, mostly referrals, people who trusted her completely. She didn't advertise. She didn't need to. Her work spoke for itself. Clean lines, warm layers, nothing too trendy. She hated when design felt like it was trying too hard. Evenings were when we reconnected. Sometimes we cooked together. Sometimes one of us grabbed takeout and the other poured drinks. We had this little ritual of sitting outside after dinner, 10, 15 minutes, no phones, no plans. Just a shared pause. Sometimes we talked about our day. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. Weekends were for markets, bookstores, and long drives with no destination. Dana loved antique shops and coffee in paper cups. I liked seeing how her face lit up when she found something unexpected, a vintage lamp, an old print in a cracked frame. She called it the joy of the hunt. We had plans. To travel more. To maybe open a showroom/studio for her someday. To take 2 weeks off and drive up the coast without an itinerary. Kids were a maybe, later, conversation, not avoided, just not urgent. We were good. Not perfect, but connected. Aligned. There was no tension under the surface, no pretending. Just two people building a life with both hands, piece by piece. If someone had asked me back then what the secret was, how Dana and I made it work so smoothly, I wouldn't have had a clever answer. There wasn't a trick to it. We just understood each other. We'd built something that didn't need performance. We had a rhythm to everything, errands, holidays, arguments, affection. We knew when to give space and when to lean in. When I got quiet after a bad meeting, she didn't push. She brought me coffee and gave me the couch. When she had a tough client, I knew not to offer solutions, just to listen. We never had to explain these things. We just learned. We had our routines, and they never felt like ruts. On Wednesdays, she worked late, and I made dinner. Fridays, we did takeout and a movie, usually something halfway through before we got distracted and talked through the ending. Saturdays, we hit the farmer's market. She always bought fresh herbs, even when we had more than we needed at home. She said it made the kitchen feel alive. Dana kept the house feeling warm. Not just through design, though that helped, but through little things. She always had something baking on Sundays, even if we didn't eat it. She'd leave notes in my laptop bag when I had early meetings. She'd light candles for no reason except that she liked the scent in the hallway. Our bedroom was its own world. Peaceful, uncluttered. She made the bed every morning with these perfect, tucked corners. I always messed it up within minutes, and she'd just laugh and fix it again. She had these little habits, placing her watch and ring in the same tray, laying her book open on the same page, that made everything feel settled. We made decisions together. Talked about everything, even the mundane stuff. Where to vacation next? Whether to get a third dog. If we should refinance the mortgage. I appreciated how Dana always wanted to discuss things, not debate them. She was thoughtful, measured, but not indecisive. She knew what she liked, and what she didn't, and she trusted me to meet her in the middle. We didn't hide from hard topics either. If something bothered one of us, we didn't let it fester. We weren't dramatic. We didn't yell. That's not who we were. The worst it ever got between us was a night where we didn't speak until the next morning. And even then, we came back together with clarity, not resentment. Our friends used to comment on how mature we were. Like they couldn't believe we didn't get sick of each other. But I never thought of it that way. Dana was my favorite person to talk to. My favorite person to be quiet with. It wasn't about effort. It was about comfort. We had plans. We were talking about Portugal in the spring. Maybe splitting time between cities one day. She always liked the idea of having a place in the southwest, with light that spilled through the windows all day. I told her wherever she went, I'd go. And I meant that. By the start of the new year, things felt unusually calm, in a good way. Dana and I were synced up in every way that mattered. Our schedules had evened out, her client load was manageable, and I was settling into a new role at work that gave me more flexibility. We were finally out of the chaotic, overbooked rhythm that had followed us through most of the fall. We started planning ahead again. Bigger things. We looked at properties out in Marfa, half serious about buying a small second place out there. Something remote, quiet, a place for her to work, and for us to disconnect. She said she wanted a courtyard in desert air and nothing to do at night except sit under string lights with a bottle of wine. I told her I'd build the fire pit myself. She laughed and said I'd burn the place down in a week. We made a shared Pinterest board. That's how real it felt. At home, nothing felt strained. Dana was still making small changes to the house. She'd swap out textiles, rearrange wall art, experiment with lighting. I never minded. I liked seeing her create. She had this ability to notice when something was just a little off, a shade too warm, a chair an inch too far from the rug. She never made a big deal about it. She just adjusted. Life with her felt like that too, fine-tuned, but natural. Weeknights were easy. We'd cook. She'd play old records. Sometimes we danced in the kitchen, just a few steps before we both laughed and gave up. Other nights we'd sprawl out on the couch, our legs tangled, sharing a blanket like teenagers. She had cold feet. Always. I'd joke that one day I'd make her wear socks to bed. She always said, never gonna happen. We were planning to host a New Year's dinner at our place. Nothing huge, just a few friends, something slow and intimate before the noise of the countdown. Dana was already picking out menu ideas and color palettes for the table. She was like that with events, thoughtful to the last detail, but never frantic. She made hosting look like a pleasure, not a task. Then my company announced they'd be hosting a formal New Year's corporate party, a big one, with full staff and partners invited. It wasn't mandatory, but it was clear attendance was encouraged. I told Dana about it, expecting her to groan, but she surprised me. "You want to go?" she asked, scrolling through the event announcement on my phone. I shrugged. Could be good to show face. I wouldn't hate dressing up. She smiled. Then let's go. I'll design our dinner around it, we'll do something low-key the night before. She was already thinking of what to wear. I liked the idea of seeing her dressed up again. I hadn't seen her in anything formal since a fundraiser months back. The idea of walking into that event with her on my arm gave me a quiet kind of pride. Not because she looked good, she always did, but because she made everything look like it mattered. And if I'd been asked to list all the things I was grateful for, her name would have been at the top without a second thought. It started with a glance. Not one of those loaded, cinematic ones, nothing so obvious. Just a passing look Dana gave someone at a dinner we hosted in mid-December. We had about 10 people over, a mix of friends from her work and mine. The kind of night with candlelight, too much wine, and dessert that ended up half melted because no one remembered to take it out of the freezer in time. The night was good. Laughter came easy. Music was low. People were loosened up. Dana floated around like she always did, making sure glasses were full, asking the right questions, laughing at the right moments. I was watching her from across the room, more out of habit than anything else. And that's when I saw it, a glance. The kind that lingers just a second longer than it should. She was listening to one of my coworkers talk, but her eyes flicked to someone else, someone sitting beside him, who I didn't really know. A guy from a different department, maybe. The look wasn't intense. It wasn't flirtatious. But it wasn't nothing either. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was nothing. She was expressive. She always had been. But that moment stuck in my head, not because of what it was, but because of how it made me feel. Not jealous. Just, off balance. Like someone moved a picture on the wall just slightly, and now it's the only thing you can look at. Over the next few days, I let it go. I convinced myself it was the wine, the lighting, the angle. Dana hadn't changed. She was still her, funny, affectionate, thoughtful. Still texting me midday about the soup she was making or a new client who wanted terrazzo floors in a house built in the 50s. Still curling up beside me at night with cold feet and a book she'd never finish. But then there were little things. Her phone started buzzing more often at night, once or twice while we were watching TV. She didn't hide it, but she didn't check it right away either. Just glanced and let it be. I never asked who it was. I didn't want to be that guy. She also started working out more. Not a drastic shift, just a new class she added to her routine, something in the evenings, twice a week. She said it helped clear her head, especially with the stress of new project deadlines. Again, nothing about that was wrong. Dana was always independent. She didn't need to justify her time. But I noticed. That's all. I noticed, and I tucked it away, telling myself not to make something out of thin air. The New Year's party was coming up, and she was more excited than I expected. She'd already ordered a dress, blocked off a hair appointment, even asked me if she should wear something serious or playful. I told her she could wear a paper bag and still look amazing. She laughed, kissed my cheek, and said, "That's because you're soft." And maybe I was. Maybe I wanted to believe nothing had changed. But something had. The week before the New Year's party, Dana was busier than usual, not work busy, not stressed. Just, distracted. Her schedule was packed with things that weren't unusual on their own. A meeting here, a site visit there, a late lunch that turned into a cocktail hour with her client's design team. She'd come home in good spirits, sometimes glowing in that way she used to after nailing a pitch. I was glad things were going well for her. Or at least, I thought that's what I was feeling. But small things kept nagging at me. She was careful about her phone in a way she hadn't been before. Not cagey, not obviously, but different. It stayed face down on the kitchen island, even when it wasn't buzzing. She'd excuse herself to take a call in the other room more often. She was vague about who she was meeting for lunch or drinks. Not secretive. Just imprecise. Once, I caught her smiling at a message. It was late, we were on the couch, and she was flipping through her phone while half watching the screen. Her smile was soft, subtle, the kind people give to private jokes. I asked what was funny. She said, "Just something one of the girls from work sent me." She didn't show me. I didn't ask again. Another night, she came home later than planned, said her Uber took forever, and then launched into a story about how her client couldn't decide between two identical shades of beige. She was animated, talkative, but something in her tone felt performed. Like she was talking to fill space, not connect. I started sleeping a little lighter. Listening for things. Her voice in the hallway. The sound of doors opening and closing. She wasn't doing anything wrong, but my body had started to anticipate something it couldn't name. One night, I opened her laptop to look for a recipe we'd bookmarked, something we made together a few months ago. As I started typing, the browser auto-filled a search, men's cologne that lingers. It could have been for me, I thought. Maybe she was planning a gift. Maybe it was nothing. But the possibility of something else had started to grow roots. At work, I found myself distracted. Checking my phone more often, looking for her name, reading texts twice. She hadn't changed how she wrote, she still sent me photos of fabric samples, bad parking jobs, and the occasional half-joking meme. But even those started to feel like noise. Like camouflage. I couldn't tell if she was pulling away, or if I was just reaching harder than usual. The New Year's party was 3 days away. She already had her dress. I'd had my suit pressed. We even joked about renting a hotel room near the venue, so we wouldn't have to drive back late. You know, she said, leaning into me on the couch, might be fun to make a night of it. It sounded good. Familiar. Intimate. But her tone didn't land the same. It was the kind of sentence that should have made me feel close. Instead, it made me watch her more closely. The day of the party, Dana was calm. Too calm. She moved through the house like someone rehearsing lines, every motion just slightly too deliberate. She had her dress hanging up hours before she needed it. Steamed, ready. She laid out her jewelry, her shoes, even a second clutch in case the first one felt too formal. I told her she looked stunning, and she did. There was no denying it. Hair swept back, neckline sharp, eyes lined in a way that made her look even more direct than usual. She kissed me lightly when I said it, then turned back to the mirror without saying anything. At the hotel, the ballroom buzzed with that particular mix of alcohol, ego, and expensive fabric. The kind of energy that makes people feel more important than they actually are. Dana blended into the scene like she belonged there. Which, of course, she did. She always knew how to read a room and match its temperature without losing her shape. I watched her float between conversations, dipping in and out of circles of people I only half knew. She wasn't clinging to me, but that wasn't unusual. We never played the attached at the hip couple. We were comfortable enough to move independently and circle back to each other. It had always worked. But tonight, something felt wrong in that space between us. It was small at first, moments where she looked over her shoulder, not at me, but just, away. Like she was tracking something. Or someone. She'd glance at her phone and quickly return it to her clutch. I caught her smiling once, that soft, private kind of smile, and when she saw me watching, she looked down and adjusted her bracelet. During dinner, I caught a strange beat of conversation. I was talking to a colleague seated beside me, and I heard someone behind me mention Dana's name in passing. I didn't turn right away, just listened. Laughter followed. Nothing pointed. But something about the tone made my skin prickle. Later, when I asked Dana what that was about, she brushed it off. Just someone being weird. Don't overthink it. Then she excused herself to the restroom, took her clutch, and disappeared for nearly 20 minutes. When she came back, she looked restored. Brighter, somehow. She leaned in, whispered something about getting a drink, and walked straight to the bar without waiting for me. I sat there, watching her from across the room. Everything she did seemed normal. Laughing, sipping her drink, brushing her hair behind her ear. But my chest was tight. Like I was watching someone play her in a very good imitation, just off enough to feel like a warning. Then I realized she hadn't kissed me once all night. Not even a quick touch on the cheek. Not once had she reached for my hand. And I don't know why that hit harder than anything else. But it did. We booked the hotel room as a convenience, something Dana framed as, just easier than driving back late. It made sense. The party was upscale, black tie, stretched into the early hours. She handled the reservation, one of the higher floors, good view, quiet wing. I didn't think twice about it. That night, everything had an edge I couldn't place. The energy in the ballroom was bright, but Dana felt disconnected from it. From me. She was all smiles, poised, charming, but it was like watching someone walk through a rehearsal. Every word and movement came off just a little too polished. She looked stunning. Everyone told her so. I heard it over and over again from my coworkers and their partners. She's incredible, you're lucky, she has such presence. I nodded, smiled, agreed. But the more I heard it, the more it began to ache, because none of it was really mine that night. She felt like she belonged to the room. Not to me. Around 11:20, Dana leaned in close and said she was going to freshen up before midnight. "I want to look good in pictures," she said, half laughing, her hand brushing my shoulder. "I'll meet you at the bar." I told her I'd get us a drink and save her a spot. But she didn't come back. 15 minutes passed. Then 25. I texted her, "You good?" No response. I waited. Pacing a little. Watching the elevators. Looking toward the hallway leading to the guest room corridors. Nothing. Something cold started settling in my gut, not panic, not anger. Just clarity. An eerie sort of knowing. I took the elevator up. The hallway was long and still. I knew which room she'd booked. She'd sent me the confirmation earlier in the week, just to keep it all organized. I walked slowly. Too slowly. My heart was beating, but the rest of me felt detached. That's when I saw them. Her shoes, both heels, resting perfectly beside the door. Neat. Deliberate. Not kicked off in a hurry. Placed. I didn't knock. I used the key. The door opened quietly. Just a few inches. I didn't need more. I saw her first. Dana, on the bed, the dress halfway off, her bare shoulder exposed, turned toward someone I couldn't see, not yet. Then he shifted. My boss. Elliot. His shirt was unbuttoned. His hand was around her thigh. They weren't scrambling. They weren't shocked. They were comfortable. Like this wasn't an accident. Like this had been planned. Her eyes widened when she saw me. But she didn't say my name. She said, "Wait." That was all. I didn't step in. I didn't shout. I closed the door. Quietly. Walked back down the hallway like I was leaving a meeting. Into the elevator. Into the lobby. The cold air outside bit hard when I stepped into it. Fireworks cracked above the skyline. I could hear cheers, laughter, glass clinking inside the hotel behind me. It was midnight. New Year's. And in the span of 20 seconds, the life I thought I was living collapsed on itself without a sound. I didn't go far after I left the hotel room. Just outside, around the back of the ballroom where the delivery trucks usually parked. I stood there in the dark, not moving, hearing the muffled beat of the music through the walls. My hands were still in my pockets. My heart had gone completely still. What they did wasn't a mistake. It was coordination. Planning. Confidence. And now they were going to feel what it meant to be seen. I walked back inside just before the countdown hit 1 minute. The ballroom was glowing, lit gold and silver, people shouting numbers and raising glasses. My co-workers, my team, their partners, all eyes on the stage where Elliot stood front and center, microphone in hand, counting down like he owned the moment. I made my way through the crowd. Calm. Intentional. 3, 2, 1. Cheers. Streamers. Applause. Music swelled. Then I stepped up onto the platform. He saw me. He tried to smile. "Hey, what's up?" I took the mic out of his hand. The music kept going for a second. Then it faded. Someone turned it down. People noticed. The crowd shifted. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, calmly into the mic, "I just thought the company deserved a more honest toast this year." Laughter, unsure, awkward. I looked out at everyone. Most of you know me. I've worked here for 8 years. Helped build what we're standing in now. Closed deals, led teams, trained new hires. Gave everything I had. A few nods. Murmurs. And this guy right here, I turned toward Elliot, while you were all out here dancing, he was upstairs, in a hotel room, with my wife. Silence. Flat, instant, breathtaking silence. I let it sit. I found them together 20 minutes ago. Same room Dana and I were supposed to be staying in tonight. A woman gasped. Someone said, "What?" I kept going. He's not just a fraud. He's a coward who seduces other people's wives while pretending to be a leader. I stepped forward. If this is the kind of man you want running your company, go ahead. But I won't work under someone who uses power like that. And neither should you. Then, the wildest thing happened. Someone in the back said, "Out of the company." Another voice, "Out of the company." Then more. Dozens. Chanting. "Out of the company. Out of the company." Elliot stood frozen. Pale. Useless. I dropped the mic on the stage floor and walked straight out the door. By the time I got home, the post I'd written from the hotel was already up on social media. No names, just details. It didn't need names. People figured it out fast. The next morning, half my team quit. Another third threatened to walk. The company issued a PR statement by noon. Elliot resigned 2 days later. His reputation? Destroyed. As for Dana, she came home to find her things packed, stacked by the front door. I didn't even speak to her. I just held the door open. Her face crumpled, but I felt nothing. No rage. No heartbreak. Just clarity. By the end of the week, everyone knew. Our friends. Our families. Her clients. She wasn't the elegant one anymore. She was the wife who blew up a life for a man who had none left. The days after felt unreal. Not loud, not chaotic. Just hollow. I wasn't fielding calls. People had already said what they needed to say. Some sent messages of support, coworkers, old friends, even a few people I barely knew. The kind of messages that say, "If you need anything," but never actually mean you'll call. I didn't answer most of them. There was nothing to say. The house felt different. Not because she was gone, but because it had stopped pretending. Everything that had once felt carefully designed now felt like staging. I moved through the rooms like I was stepping into a replica of my own life. I knew where everything was, but nothing meant what it used to. I stripped the bed the first night she was gone. Took the sheets to the trash, didn't even bother washing them. I replaced the pillows. Got rid of her candles. Her books. Her little trays of jewelry. I boxed up the rest of her things and left them on the porch. She didn't come back for them. Someone else did, a friend of hers. No note. No call. She didn't try to explain. Maybe she knew it wouldn't matter. Elliot disappeared. Social media wiped. No email. Gone like smoke. The company scrambled to rebuild, but from what I hear, no one trusts the leadership anymore. No one's staying. No one's proud to be part of it. You can't recover from something that personal made that public. I've been sleeping with the windows open. I don't know why. Maybe to air out the place. Maybe to make it feel less like a sealed box of bad memory. The cold helps. The silence helps. Sometimes. I still check the door before bed. A reflex. I started cooking again, not well, but enough. Real food. My food. I play music louder now. Fill the space. She hated when I played certain albums on repeat. I play them all the time now. There's freedom in loneliness when no one's lying to you. The grief didn't come in tears. It came in waves of nothing. Days where time just existed. I didn't break down. I didn't rage. I just went still. But even in the stillness, there was something else growing, a line of steel, a new shape of myself that didn't include her voice. There's no need to wonder why she did it. No benefit in asking what I missed. Because I didn't miss anything. She chose it. Again and again, until she got caught. And that's what makes it easy now. The clarity. It wasn't a failure in us. It was rot in her. It's strange what you start to notice when the noise finally dies. Like how quiet the house really is without a second pair of footsteps. How slow Sunday mornings feel when there's no one flipping pages beside you. How fast grief turns to stillness, and how stillness, eventually, starts to feel like freedom. 3 months have passed. People stopped asking how I'm doing. That's fine. I don't need to explain what it feels like to wake up in a house that used to lie to you. You either get that or you don't. I didn't fix the place up right away. I let it sit. I left spaces empty on purpose. No rush to refill the silence. I wanted to know what the house sounded like when it was finally honest. And now, little by little, it feels like mine again. Her smell is gone. Her things are gone. So is the version of me that spent years quietly assuming trust was something you gave, not something that had to be kept. I started journaling, not for insight, just to keep record. To mark the distance between then and now. Some days, I write a sentence. Others, I write nothing. But I leave the page open. And that feels like enough. People still talk, I'm sure. What happened wasn't private. It never will be. But I've made peace with that. I told the truth. I exposed what needed to be exposed. I didn't hide. I didn't retaliate out of bitterness. I just let them both collapse under the weight of what they'd built. Elliot is done. The company's gutted. Dana, I don't know. I don't ask. I don't check. She's someone else's burden now, or maybe no one's. But she's not mine. Not anymore. I thought revenge would feel like fire. But it felt more like clean air. I don't miss her. What I miss, and this took a while to admit, is who I thought she was. The version I believed in. The one who leaned in when I spoke, who bought my favorite coffee without asking, who danced barefoot in the kitchen while dinner cooled. That version never existed. I was faithful to a fantasy. And that's the part I've let go. These days, I get up early. I open the blinds wide. I walk the long route with coffee in hand, no headphones. I breathe easier. I laugh more. The weight's still there, but it's behind me now, not pressing down, just reminding me. I survived something that should have broken me. And now, I live like a man who doesn't need to be proven wrong again.